Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Monster Hunter Stories 2. Isn't that an excellent joke?
Hit review.
First things first, I don't want to lie to you. I took 0 notes on Monster Hunter Stories 2 because I just played the demo and I feel pretty good about what I played to just talk about it. So Monster Hunter, interesting franchise. We all know it, didn't like it, made a video about it, made a pledge, played it, loved it, got sucked into it. 2021 is the year of Monster Hunter. So of course the question was always going to be Monster Hunter Stories 2, the second Monster Hunter game of this year. Will I want to play it? Will I get into it? And I have to say, from the very get-go, the fact that it was a JRPG was like, okay, I like JRPGs. I've never had anything against JRPGs, unlike Monster Hunter, which I did not like the mechanics of a slower, heavier type of gameplay. But JRPGs, I was always down. So Monster Hunter Stories 2 was always kind of appealing to me. And it only became more appealing to me the more I played Monster Hunter, because every time I saw a new trailer, I was like, oh, I know that character. Oh, I know that monster. I was learning the universe of Monster Hunter Stories 2, which kept getting me more excited. Also, I have to say, from the get-go, I love the art style of Monster Hunter Stories 2. All the trailers for it, I was like, man, I want to play like an actual Monster Hunter game in this art style. I love cartoony stuff. I love cel-shaded stuff. It's lighthearted. It's lovely. Like, sign me up. Music was wonderful too. So I was so happy that they dropped a demo, because I'm like, let's try this out. I did not play Monster Hunter Stories 1, though I am curious to play it. People told me it's like Pokemon but better, so I'm like, oh, that's good, because I like Pokemon, but I don't like it anymore. So if it's better, that's probably a good thing. So went in with 0 expectations, but learned it's a lot about eggs. So after my first demo play, I played 3 hours. I did not play the whole demo through because I didn't need to. I'm already sold on it. If you're just wondering if I'm going to be playing it, the answer is yes, I will be. I made it to the part where I just finished the Puke fight. So we finished the Puke fight, and then we're supposed to go to like a special forest. I was like, I'm good with this. Everything about this game is fantastic. And before I kind of break down the parts I liked and what I observed, I just have to say what I felt playing this was really special, because I used to play JRPGs like crazy. Like, that's all I played when I was in my teen years, early 20s. So that was like a couple years ago. And what I felt playing this demo was exactly what I felt playing those games all those years ago. It felt so nostalgic, even though I had never played this franchise, because it feels like an old style turn-based JRPG, which I'm just like, I kept referencing Chrono Trigger as I was playing, because I'm like, oh, could you imagine Chrono Trigger remade in this like art style? And then there's parts where you you attack with your Monstie, and I'm just like, this is like the dual attack of Chrono Trigger, and the animations are cool. Could you imagine Chrono Trigger being redone with this art style, having these animations? And I just like, this is how you would redo Chrono Trigger using this engine. So it was a treat to play, and there's so much to do. I love the fact that there's so many quests, like just the fact in the demo, there's a whole quest list, there's arenas, there's so many things to collect. You go out in the wild, you're getting that like collecting thing that I get in Monster Hunter, which I love. All of that, I absolutely love. I love that you get like these random dens that open up, like you get rare ones to go get eggs. And then there's the whole like kind of lottery part that you want to go get eggs to get new monsters. I can't say this is what sealed it for me. I was about to say that, because there's just so many things I love about this, which is why it's an easy sell for me. There's so much to collect. The encyclopedia, like AKA the Pokedex, has like 600 things to fill in it. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things to like cross off a list. There's the quests, there's monsters, there's monsties, there's genetics. Oh my God, genetics. We got to talk about that. There's just so much to find. Like, I'm like, I love this. And then of course we have achievements, because I'm still debating. I was like, do I go for Switch or do I go for Steam? There's really, I don't play portables, so the Switch portability aspect never really appealed to me. And now that I'm playing more on Steam, I'm like, well, I like having all my achievements linked to one account. You get achievements on Switch as well, but it's all in-game. So some people are saying performance is going to be better on PC. So I'm leaning towards PC, but then you get like the crossover stuff if you go on Switch. I'm just like, what do I do? So I'm going to wait until like the last day, probably until launch day, just to see if there's any reviews on the PC version. And if there's any red flags why I should not get that, or if there's any like green flags where they're like, oh, the performance is so much better on PC, get it there. That's pretty much what's going to make me decide to go one way or another. Where were we? Collecting. And then there's a little separate shop with bottle caps and unique items. So you have this whole other currency where you collect bottle caps to get these other styles. And in one style I got, which was just horrendous, the chat made me get like these ears. I think it was like a Jan Kut ear thing. My hair, it looked gross. It was terrible. I hated looking at it. I was only able to do it for 30 minutes and I'm like, okay, that's it. I had my generous donation for chat today, but we're going back to normal hair. I have to say too, the hair design looked cool too. Not of the Jan Kut, but just in general, like the character creation was so pleasant. Like it had enough diversity to kind of pick and choose almost what you want, but it wasn't as extreme as, let's say, Monster Hunter World's character creation, where it's like, oh, we're going to be here for a couple of hours, wondering if my nose should be like a little bit out here and a little bit in here and a little bit fatter. Like, that is just too much detail for me. Just give me like the me selection where I can just be like, okay, I got 6 pairs of eyes. I like number 1. Let's go with that. Keep it simple. That's what I like. So that was all good. So everything that's been thrown at me, I like. The story, honestly, I don't think the demo, well, I can't really judge the story because I didn't play the demo all the way through. But in general, I understand that it's all about this baby Rathalos with special wings, and there's this whole legend about he's going to bring the end of the world and something ensues. So it's all going to be around that. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to be playing this game for the story. Like, it seems to be there. The cutscenes are nice. Like, I really love the intro cinematic. I love the aesthetic of even like the armor and everything the villagers are wearing. But I'm playing this game, I'm not going to lie, I'm playing this game honestly for the mechanics. The combat feels good. I love the combat. It's good turn-based. It's the whole rock, paper, scissors model where you have to kind of anticipate what the other monster is going to do, and then you want to like rock, paper, scissors. So you've got power, technique, and speed. Speed trumps power, power trumps technique. I could be getting that wrong. I'm going from memory. And you got to predict. As you kill more monsters, you will learn what they are, and it'll actually show up on screen. So it kind of like has that built-in learning aspect that makes everything easier the more you learn and progress, which I love. On top of the rock, paper, scissors, we also then have slash, bludgeon, and pierce damage. So you can pick different weapons. And this was cool because now I can actually like switch my weapons on the fly, which is a whole other aspect of Monster Hunter that I can't really do as comfortably when I'm playing traditional Monster Hunter. Like I play Switch Axe, which minus 2 points because Switch Axe isn't in Monster Hunter Stories. But now I can actually get to like pretend I'm playing with the Greatsword, and I can play with bow and all that, and I don't need the skill to go with it. I can just switch out on the fly and kill all these other monsters with that. There's also kind of like body part targeting, and there's like strategy too. When Kulu grabs his rock, okay, now I gotta pull out my hammer to break the rock so I can go back to slashing it afterwards. That depth of mechanic is great. And then there's like gauges to unleash supers with your Monstie. And then there's genes, which I'm not going to pretend to know what genetics are, because that is a system. Honestly, I looked at it, I was like, whew, this one, like there was so much other stuff to look at. I'm like, genetics, we're gonna leave you for the full version. All I know is that when you hatch a certain monster, you want to get a rainbow genetic, because you get like a tic-tac-toe card and you gotta like do mix and match, and the genetics give you like different stats and stuff. And I'm like, this is more interesting and more appealing to me than like Pokemon min-maxing. But for me right now, I'm still so entertained by just the base stuff that genetics is going to be more of an advanced thing I look into with the full version. So praise aside, I've praised this game in every category so much. There are a few flaws. The first thing that I felt was off was the controls. So everybody told me to put the camera on max setting because they say it's really sluggish. So I didn't even experience the default camera setting. I went full on camera, and I have to say it still felt a little slow. So I don't even want to know what the default camera speed is, because even on fast, it was a little slow. Nothing too crazy, it's just that I wish it was a little bit quicker. The actual movement controls, though, feel clunky. And I think it's a clunky I can overcome, but like the first impression, just the first hour of sitting with it, I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, it just felt, I don't even know how to describe this. And I want to say PS1 era clunky, but I feel that is a little bit too harsh of a treatment. If you know what I mean, like, you know, back in the day when you had to use a D-pad to do like 3D motion, like it's not that bad, but it reminds me of that in some way, which is not a good thing. So the clunkiness isn't enough to get in the way of the gameplay, honestly. It's just there where I'm like, this doesn't feel fluid. Like when I'm looking at this game, I'm expecting to move around like Link in Breath of the Wild, but instead I'm moving around a little bit more stiff-like, and it just throws me off a bit. And then when you're riding your Monstie in the wild, you can't kind of just go and do whatever. You have to go at specific spots, use specific monsters if you want to jump, climb vines, swim. You need to have that specific monster in. For a JRPG, that's fine. This isn't an action-adventure game, so it's not like it's a big deal. The other thing that I was a little bit worried about is the fact that you play as a very young character. And with all the aesthetics and the whole egg hatching and babies and all that, I'm like, who is this game geared towards? And will this be, you know, dialed too much to a young age where I feel disconnected? That was one big concern I had. In the 3 hours I played, I never felt like I identified as the character, probably because of that age gap. But I also didn't feel like it was overbearingly childish where I'm just like, this is just bad. It was really tolerable, and I think it helps that the protagonist just doesn't talk. So it's very similar to the Pokemon protagonist, which, you know, those are kids too, and I don't feel that out of touch with that world. And no one else talks to you like a child. It also probably helps that I was playing the whole thing with Japanese voices, so it just felt like it fit with, like, it just felt like I was playing a good anime, because the only other content media that I consume that is in Japanese audio is anime. So I'm just like, this all fits natural. Then we have our sidekick character, which is probably the only annoying thing. At first I was like, oh no, this thing is terrible. I'm talking about the little deformed Palico. I forget his name, but the voice was terrible. But again, it's in Japanese, so it's kind of like, I can kind of get by. It's kind of like the mascot of the series annoying, so it's not too bad. And honestly, after 2 hours of playing the game and having that sidekick there, he was starting to grow onto me. So I'm like, okay, maybe these things can be like adopted to, or maybe he will win me over with his mascot charm somehow. Like, he's got to be, people love this thing for some reason. So overall, the demo was a really good demo. It was way better of a demo for me than the Monster Hunter Rise demo was way back when. I'm totally on board with this game. I'm excited to get into it and play it. And like I said, I'm going into this to collect everything and to just do as much as I can. The story, not so much. The gameplay, though, love the gameplay. It's very nostalgic for me. And I can't wait to get another turn-based JRPG. Like, this is the kind of game I want. And it's been so long since I got a good one. So really looking forward to playing that, sharing my thoughts with all of you. It's probably not a game I'm going to journal, honestly, because I don't think it makes for a good journal type entry, but I will be streaming it. And oh, I wasn't supposed to reveal that. That was for another video. Well, surprise, I will be streaming it. I just have to figure out a schedule for it. So I'll see you during those streams or on my next video or next Heiji review. And until then, keep it classy.